Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my post-2022 NFL stock down players. Inside of today's video, I'll be going in depth into 3 different players who I believe that their stock has went down, their perceived value has went down based upon what occurred in the 2022 NFL draft, as well as what happened surrounding around the NFL draft. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my post NFL draft player stock down. So we'll begin with probably the most obvious one, and this one doesn't technically surround the NFL draft. It isn't technically from the NFL draft, but it is from yesterday, and that is DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals, currently coming off the board on Underdog Fantasy as wide receiver number 13. That ADP is going to drastically drop based upon the news that we got yesterday, and that news is that DeAndre Hopkins has been suspended for the first 6 games of the 2022 NFL season because of performance-enhancing drugs. Now, if you read what DeAndre Hopkins said, he said he's never done PEDs. He said that he was shocked to see that this happened. It's all the way from November of last season. I don't know what happened. I'm going to continue to look into things. So, whether you believe DeAndre Hopkins or not really doesn't fucking matter for the argument here. The only thing that we're discussing is the fact that DeAndre Hopkins has lost an immense amount of value from missing the first 6 games of the season. That is very, very bad for DeAndre Hopkins. 2021, DeAndre Hopkins dealt with the injury bug. He was healthy early on in the season, but he just could not get back for the end of the season, could not get back for their playoff push. So in 2021, he only played in 10 games, finishing as the wide receiver number 43 in half PPR, but he was the wide receiver number 18 in half PPR points per game. So when he was healthy, he definitely was a very valuable player on your roster. He had 63 targets, 6.3 per game, 64th at wide receiver, 42 receptions, 4.2 per game, 60th at wide receiver, 572 receiving yards, 57.2 per game, 52nd at wide receiver, but he did have 8 total touchdowns, 13th at wide receiver. So in just 10 games, that means that he was scoring touchdowns in a majority of the games. 80% of the games, he was scoring a touchdown. Is that something that is going to be applicable if he was to have played a 17-game season in 2022? Probably not. Probably not. But we're not looking at a 17-game season for DeAndre Hopkins now. We are now only looking at a season with 11 games. And again, that is going to immensely hurt his value. So now what we're going to try to discuss here is now where are you going to be comfortable drafting DeAndre Hopkins? Because he's not going to come off the board as wide receiver number 13. How far down can you push him? Because while he's missing 6 games, that is not half the season, but that is a very substantial part of the NFL season. So personally, if I am on the board and we're looking at wide receivers 25 through 28, I still don't think I even want to pull the trigger because I don't want to enter the season in fantasy football with a guy that's just going to be riding the pine for the first 6 games of the season. A guy that's going to be burning a hole on my bench with a player that is not going to be playing. There's no way he can play. Whereas I would much rather just draft a guy that is going to play the first 6 weeks. Now, again, you can never predict injuries, so it's not a mortal lock of the century that when you draft some motherfucker in that range, that he's going to play every game. But I know for a fact that DeAndre Hopkins isn't going to be playing that amount of games. Unless you are in a league where there's also different leagues, right? Because in some leagues, you can draft DeAndre Hopkins and then just throw him on the IR. Throw him on the injured reserve spot because he's suspended. And in that case, I'm fine drafting him because right after the draft, I hop onto the waiver wire, click-de-clack, type in some names, and put someone else on my roster. And then guess what? It's not even like I'm missing DeAndre Hopkins. Now, I understand I invested the high draft capital in him. Some people would argue against doing that. That's a fine argument as well. But when you have the IR spot, it's not as bad because he's not just burning a hole on your bench where you could be adding on other players. In terms of best ball, this is also a place where some people will think one way, some people will think the exact opposite. So, DeAndre Hopkins, you do have a deeper bench than in most leagues in best ball. So you can have DeAndre Hopkins chilling there. But how comfortable are you drafting a player whose now expected usable weeks has gone down immensely because it's not 17 games anymore. For him, it is going to be just 11 games. So that's something you have to think about. Personally, based upon what I've seen right now with the 6-game suspension, with the fact that it seems like there's going to be no reduction of games, it's not going to go to 3 games, it's locked and loaded at 6 games, I just do not feel comfortable drafting DeAndre Hopkins right now in the best ball format over on Underdog. Speaking of Underdog, our sponsor of today's video, Underdog Fantasy is known for their NFL best ball tournaments. However, Underdog does not stop there. Underdog has plenty of other contests for you to compete in, including live draft contests and pick'ems in which you can make up to 20 times 20x your entry fee. Use promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, also on your screen right now, to get a first match deposit bonus of up to $100. If you don't want to type the promo code in, then just go down below in the description. You click on the link, and it automatically puts the promo code in there for you, so you can get your first match deposit bonus of up to $100. Please make sure that you guys do get started on Underdog Fantasy today. Me and Savoca did a best ball draft yesterday on Underdog, so please make sure that you guys do go ahead and check out that video after this if you want, or just go ahead and hop on there and do one yourself. We will be doing one every single Monday, so you guys can even hop in there with us. So next up, we move to Breece Hall, running back of the New York Jets. Underdog ADP running back 23, overall pick 62. Now, some people might be thinking, Nick, how do you move his stock down if the guy's never even played an NFL game? The reason why I'm moving his stock down is because so many people were banging the drum, including myself, and we're pumping up Breece Hall because Breece Hall could go to the Buffalo Bills. There's so much smoke. He could go to the Buffalo Bills. That's an excellent landing spot. They got Josh Allen. They've got Stephon Diggs. They have Dawson Knox. They have these weapons. This is going to be so fucking exciting. You insert Breece Hall into there, and this man could be a top 5 fantasy running back. So prior to the NFL draft, people keep pumping Breece Hall up. They're drafting him in the 4th round. They're potentially pulling the trigger in the 3rd round because the player is so great. And if he lands in the correct spot, this situation is going to be amazing. And then the NFL draft hits you just in the back of the head, a dirty hit with him getting drafted to the Jets. Now, I'm not here to tell you that the Jets are going to be dog shit because I think the Jets are going to be slightly better potentially than we expect. I think a couple of years from now, this could have ended up being a great landing spot for Breece Hall because this team could be significantly better than it was prior to like last year, right? The years prior where they were just bad. But we're looking at this from 2022 standpoint. Some people are going to argue that Breece Hall is going to get cucked by Michael Carter, that Michael Carter's going to be able to really seep into Breece Hall's workload. I don't worry too much about that. I think Breece Hall is going to be the number 1 guy, but I think it's going to be pretty similar to Jonathan Taylor's rookie year, where Naheem Hines does get just enough work to where it's pretty annoying when you have Breece Hall, but at the end of the day, Breece Hall is still the guy there. So I think there's this situation where Breece Hall is going to be the number 1 running back. He's going to be the clear lead back on this team, but the situation that he is in just is not amazing, like I said. While the Jets are getting better, in 2022, this team is far from some utopia. In college at Iowa State, he had back-to-back, this Breece Hall, 1,400 rushing yard seasons with over 20 touchdowns. Last year in 2021, he played in 12 games, 253 rushes, 1,472 rushing yards, 23 total touchdowns, 36 receptions for 302 receiving yards. So clearly, when you look at the stats, when you pop the film on, you watch the film, he looks great. He looks great. He looks great in the stat sheet. He looks great on the film room, But again, the situation just is not there. I'm slightly worried about Michael Carter. I don't think you should be very worried. I am somewhat worried, not as worried as most people, but I'm somewhat worried about him. So we're kind of just in a range where I'm probably just not going to end up drafting him. I understand the upside. I understand if everything goes right in New York for the Jets, Breece Hall could be a home run pick. But I think this year, where we're getting him in the draft, I just don't really feel comfortable, and I'm definitely knocking him down a peg, because if he went to Buffalo or maybe another team where I felt a little bit more comfortable with the team, then he could have been amazing. So my final player to discuss in today's post-draft stock down is going to be Mr. Corvette JuJu Smith-Schuster, wide receiver of the Kansas City Chiefs, wide receiver 47 right now based upon Underdog ADP, overall pick 108 in 2021 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. JuJu Smith-Schuster only played in 5 games, finishing as the wide receiver 137 in half PPR, and was only the wide receiver number 90 in half PPR points per game, tied with the likes of Nick Westbrook, E. Cain, Josh Reynolds, and Laquan Treadwell. That is not very good at all for a guy that used to have all the praise like JuJu Smith-Schuster. Now, again, he was hurt, I understand, but when he was healthy, when he was on the field, he wasn't very good. 28 targets, 5.6 per game, 119th at wide receiver, 15 receptions, 3.0 per game, 125th at wide receiver, 129 receiving yards, 25.8 per game, 125th at wide receiver, and 1 total touchdown, 108th at wide receiver. So not a great year for Mr. JuJu. He moves to Kansas City, and that instantly moves his stock up because now he's not in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of competition in Pittsburgh. Now he's in Kansas City, a Kansas City team without Tyreek Hill, without their number 1 wide receiver. Now Travis Kelce's probably the number 1 guy in terms of targets there. But yeah, they lost Tyreek Hill. That is a humongous hole to fill. So they get JuJu. They get MVS. They draft Sky Moore with 2 Ys. So now they've got a lot of receivers there. And again, I actually still like JuJu Smith-Schuster as a player. And in terms of where he's going based upon underdog ADP, I am fine taking him. I am fine taking the shot. But in terms of how I felt about JuJu Smith-Schuster, in terms of where I would have ranked him much higher than wide receiver 47 prior to the draft. So now I'm getting a little bit more worried about JuJu, and I don't feel as confident. Again, this is a guy that a couple of years ago was like the shining star rookie in the NFL, the shining star young player in the NFL. This guy was absolutely tearing defenses a new asshole early on his career, but recently things have went downhill. Could they rise back up? Could he climb back on top of Mount Everest? 100% he has the skill set to do it. But the fact that he was on the Chiefs really elevated his value. And now, with there being so many guys there, with them drafting Sky Moore with how talented he is, I'm a little bit nervous about JuJu, so I definitely consider this a stock down for JuJu Smith-Schuster. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you hit that like button, as well as that subscribe button down below. It would help us out a ton. And please make sure that you guys do check out our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, for a first match deposit bonus of up to $100, or just click the link in the video description. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, good boy!